Okay. All right. Looks like we have a nice amount of people that are with us on this evening. So we'll go ahead and get started. I don't want to take up too much of your time on tonight. My name is Menominee, and I am the community outreach at VTA. And I want to just welcome you to the meeting and to just thank you all in advance for joining us on this evening and for taking time out of your busy schedules on tonight. With that being said, I do want to go through and introduce you all to the staff that are joining us on tonight. And so the VTA staff, I'm sorry. So what I'm going to do is I am going to ask for our staff to introduce themselves and tell those folks, those of us at the meeting, what you do at VTA and what your role this evening will be. And I want to start with Nikki Diaz.
Thank you, Menominee. Hi, I'm Nikki Diaz. I'm a transportation planner. I focus on bus stop programs, and I will be assisting in a breakout group today.
And we will go to Gretchen Biza.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gretchen Biza. I'm the Community Outreach Manager at VTA, and I will be the Swiss Army knife tonight, so wherever I'm needed.
Perfect. Joseph Santiago.
Hi, good evening. My name is Joseph Santiago. I'm a transportation planner in our service planning department, and I will be assisting with our breakout groups tonight.
Perfect. John Sagamini.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Sagamini, Senior Transportation Planner, working on the Long Range Transportation Plan. We'll also be assisting in one of the breakout rooms.
Perfect. Janice Soriano Ramos.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Janice Soriano Ramos. I am a senior transportation planner, also on our transit service planning team, and I am leading a wonderful team of people who are also working on this visionary transit network, and we'll be doing quite a bit of talking today. So I'll be looking forward to passing on the rest of the talking in the breakout rooms, and I will also be facilitating one of the breakout rooms tonight. So looking forward to meeting you all.
Perfect, thank you. And then I'm going to give it over to Deanna Bolio. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. Deanna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna Bolio. I work in community outreach and public engagement at VTA, and I will be helping to facilitate our virtual sticky note activity a little bit later on.
Perfect. Okay, and I believe I got everyone. And so what I'm going to do is just run through tonight's agenda with you really quick as we move forward. In a few minutes, we're going to take a poll, basically just getting to know those of you that, since you know who we are at the meeting, we're going to get to know you a little bit. We're going to take a poll and to see who's with us and see how you travel. And then we'll go through and we'll get to the meat of the evening, and we'll talk about the Visionary Network and why it's important. Then we'll talk about what we have heard from you so far, and then we'll talk about the kind of feedback that will be most helpful for us as we move forward planning the Visionary Network. And then we do have an activity for you all this evening, which I think will be really fun and really great. So we'll go ahead and we'll break out into groups, and then we'll talk about your ideas for enhancing transit service over the next 30 years. And once we come back from the breakout groups and each group will report out, then we'll go through the timeline and the next steps with you. Okay. And just for your education, we've been in the Zoom world for a little bit, so I'm going to assume that most of you all know what to do in Zoom and how to run Zoom, but we'll go over a little bit. We do have the chat feature available. If you have questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat. You just need to click on chat and go in and type in what you would like to share with us and share with the rest of the folks at the meeting on today. And then in order for you to be able to raise your hand on this evening, Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me, I'm running this, and every time I do this, every time I touch my screen, my pad, it moves my screen over that you can see. So excuse me if you guys see a little bit of hiccups, that's on my my part today. So basically just raise your hand. You can it shows you here on the screen just how to raise your hand, how to mute yourself, unmute yourself. If you need to speak, I will give you permission to speak, or one of the staff members will give you permission to speak, and we'll ask you to unmute yourself so that the rest of the folks at the meeting will be able to hear you. And if you are using your phone, if you press *9, you can raise your hand and we will call on you. And to mute and unmute yourself, you just press *6. Okay. Okay, so now we are at our poll questions on this evening, and I am going to give it to Deanna.
So I have just launched a short a short poll of our basic demographic questions that we ask in pretty much all of our virtual meetings. It helps us know who's in the room, how we're doing on outreach, where we need to start working on getting the word out a little bit more. So there's some basic questions. It is optional, but your participation is helpful. And I'll just leave that open for a little bit, and then I'll close it out the poll and we'll share the results. We'll give it another 10, 12 seconds as I watch the counter, and then I'll close this out and share. Great, thank you. So now I will share our results. Now, ideally, we'd like to see participation cover, all the various demographic grounds. So age, we can see that the largest percentage is in the 25 to 34 range, but also that we cover from 18 up to 65 plus, which is great. Our racial and ethnicity category has, and then our income. And then finally, one of the questions that kind of gets at to why we're here today is, what's your primary mode of transportation? And so we have a lot of people driving their personal vehicles as their primary mode, some bus and light rail, and 3 cyclists, dedicated cyclists. So thank you for participating in that today, helping us out a little bit. And now we will get into the meat of our presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Deanna. Okay, and now we will give it over to Janice Soriano Ramos, and she's going to go through and give you all the information, and we will focus on what we are here tonight to do. Janice?
Thanks, Menominee. Hi, everyone. So, of course, you're all here to talk Visionary Network with us. Again, this is our aspirational transit service for Santa Clara County, and we couldn't be more excited to have this conversation here and now. It really is good timing, as if you've been keeping up with VTA, we are nearly recovered with our transit service, what we were offering before the pandemic. And so now it's time to think big and bold, and we really want to speak with you all about how we can define a shared transit service vision for the entire county that looks over the next 30 years. So it could be pretty hard to describe what the planning phase looks like when you're looking at a 30-year horizon. But what we are really here to define with this visionary network is what street corridors transit should serve in the future, how often our buses and trains should arrive, how early and late our service should run, and also what our bus stops and stations could look like. We have a bus stop amenities program that looks at different amenities that we can start to plan out over the course of the next few years. And we want to make sure that that is an experience that's wonderful for all of our riders. So we do want to spend some time talking about that as well when we talk Visionary Network. Next slide, please. So I mentioned this visionary network is very timely, and it's going to be really instrumental for many reasons, but the three key reasons that we foresee it being really useful for is it'll be a blueprint for these annual service plans that we will be embarking on pretty much in perpetuity, right? For those who aren't familiar with how we plan our service, we do have an annual service planning process that we work closely with the community on. And we want to make sure that those annual service plans achieve the visionary network over time. For those of you who haven't followed us in the past few years, we recently did a huge redesign of our network in 2019, and that's when we really wanted to kickstart the annual service planning process. But of course, the pandemic had different intentions there and interrupted that. But most recently, we got the 2023 service plan adopted. So that's the plan that will really get us back to offering full pre-pandemic service levels by the end of 2023. So we're really excited that that's been adopted. And we have a much bigger plan with the visionary network to look forward to. So second, I think you may have heard John Sigamini earlier refer to the Valley Transportation Plan, which is another visionary effort that he's leading. And to get a little bit is that really helps shape transportation for the county. So that looks at the county's vision for land use, for complete streets, for highways, and of course, transit. And so the visionary network is essentially going to define what the transit vision is for that plan. And with that plan, the VTP plan is really going to look into projects that transportation projects to be developed over the next 30 years. And so the idea with the visionary networks is once we get this network adopted, we want to use this network as a way to really support projects that are supportive of everyone's transit vision. So projects that clearly support providing fast, frequent, and reliable transit service that gets adopted through this network will be looked upon more favorably than those that don't. And finally, another big reason we're here today is it's no secret that our population, our job prospects here in the county will continue to grow, and potentially in ways that will outpace the rest of our Bay Area peers. So this really builds a necessary case for increasing transit service over time and making sure that it supports that growth. So this visionary network is really going to be our North Star for how much our transit service needs to grow and how we can gradually advocate for more funding and for more resources to make sure that our transit service grows over time and just doesn't stay stagnant to our levels today. So on the next slide, I just want to give you all a perspective on how long this effort is going for and what to expect in the coming months. Just about a month ago in mid-November, we started our visioning and community engagement phase for the Visionary Network. And we are going out there and meeting folks where they're at and meeting with people in more ways than one. So we've got a series of virtual meetings like this that we've been hosting for both the Visionary Network and the VTP. But we are also going out there at transit center pop-ups, different events that we can pop up and be face-to-face with folks to hear a little bit more about their vision for transit. But we also have focused meetings for city staff. So in this effort, we are coordinating very closely with city staff to better understand what their respective cities are envisioning for transit as well. So we've got different spaces and different opportunities for all people for the entire county to weigh in and participate. So once our community engagement period is over, we do need some time to digest everything we've heard and package it into a deliverable that we want to show to our VTA committees and to our board. And in that deliverable, we really want to highlight transit service characteristics. So this effort is really talking about what our vision is for a transit service. So things like how frequent our frequent network should run, where our frequent network should be, how looking at potential new future routes and transit corridors, especially in areas that we don't serve today. And we also want to get a little bit into other potential transit service models that we could explore other than your traditional bus and light rail service. So things like on-demand transit service that you might be seeing for different service areas like Milpitas and Morgan Hill are an example. You may want to talk a little bit about school service as well, or commuter service. So everything that we talk about today, we want to make sure we package into something that we could propose to our board. And then speaking of board adoption, we hope to have this network adopted come April of next year. So on the next slide, I wanted to spend some time sharing with you all what we've heard. And that's because we know that as of late, you've heard a lot from VTA about different projects and programs, and we really are in those previous efforts because it really gives us a chance to highlight some common themes we've heard. So I mentioned the 2023 service plan, and I think I see a handful of names here who have participated in giving us feedback for that plan. And you might remember that we've asked you to identify your top 3 improvements for recovering service, and here's how they ranked. So more frequent buses and trains continue to be a priority. There was definitely several requests to bump frequency during certain times of the day for our local routes as well. So not just on our frequent routes that already run every 15 minutes, but our local routes that run just every 30 minutes or less frequently. Weekend service and longer hours of operation were quite the priority as well. Extending service later into the evening to accommodate more of our late night workers. So these are some of the common things that we've heard and kind of how they've ranked as we were talking about how we recover our service to what it was before. We tend to hear a lot of comments about our frequent network, and these of course are our routes that run every 15 minutes or better. And we know we're still hurting and running our service as frequently as promised. With our shortage of operators, it's been a challenge meeting every single trip, but we certainly are working with that and hiring as many operators to lay out the service that we promised. Of course, for those of you who ride light rail, we're pleased to see that come back to running every 15 minutes on weekdays. So that's something we all missed. But there's, of course, other comments that we commonly hear about the rider experience around safety and security. And we also tend to get comments about the different amenities at our bus stops, including shelters, benches, lighting, and the like. Next slide, please. So a little more reporting back on what we've heard so far in your vision is from what we've been hearing from the VTP meetings and even from the first community meeting we held on the Visionary Network. We definitely saw some overlapping themes related to what we've heard in the 2023 plan. So for those of you who were in our first meeting, you may already recognize some of these comments that you see in navy blue and light blue. And since then, I've actually added a few more comments from our first community meeting to reflect a little bit more of the resounding themes there. And keep in mind, this is not all of them. They can't possibly fit into all the slides, but certainly these are the more popular, or not popular, but the common themes that we're threading across all of our engagements so far. So some new ones include more direct service between downtown San Jose and the airport, matching our light rail weekend frequency with weekday frequencies in general, funding more service to South County, adding more bus route expansions to cover service gaps, especially in the West Valley area. So not to get to read every single one of them off, but we want to report this back because we know these themes will keep resonating and they'll color our future conversations and tonight's conversation on our service. So on the next few slides, I would like to hone us in on what kind of feedback would be most useful in helping us developing this visionary network. So here are some examples on the next slide. This will look very familiar to you when you get into your breakout rooms later, but the main question today is, over the next 30 years, in what ways can VTA's transit network better serve you? And to simplify or maybe help the gears turn a little bit, we've categorized our conversation in 6 different ways. So some you've heard already. So we want to hear what you think about more frequent service, adding service to new areas, entertaining where we can add earlier morning service or late night service, better bus stops and stations, how we can improve the amenities we place out there, looking at improving our weekend service, and then anything else you want to mention about our service. So shuttles, express buses, on demand, anything goes there. So doing a little bit of a deeper dive into each of these 6 categories, I'll give you some examples on the next slide for what your ideas are for more frequent buses and trains. So this is a visual of what our 2023 frequent network will look like. So that's the map, the very minimalist map that you see in the background there that shows our bus routes and our light rail lines that operate at least every 15 minutes or better on weekdays. So we want to know how that frequent route could be better, or frequent network could be better. Could it run 10 minutes instead of every 15 minutes, for example, or dare I say every 5 minutes? Can it run more frequently at night? Do you feel that there are buses that should run at least every 30 minutes and not any longer, not have any waits that are longer than that? So those are some ideas you could pitch for frequent buses and trains. On the next slide, we want to hear your ideas for hours of operation. So the visual you see in the background here highlights today's hours of operation, and it also looks at our frequency by route. So we've got weekday, Saturday, and Sunday service here. And to quickly go over this, you'll see that the routes that are highlighted there in red are our frequent network. You'll notice that we tend to run less service or less frequent service on the weekends. And there are certainly some routes that start later or end earlier in the day. And you'll also notice that weekend service doesn't run as frequently, or there are some routes even that don't run on the weekends. So we want to get a sense of where we can improve our hours of operation throughout our network. On the next slide, similar idea, we want to understand what your ideas are for weekend service. So are there areas in our network where we can provide AL service, actually, whether that's weekend service or weekday service? Are there areas where weekend service could be much better? Could we improve our frequent weekend service on some routes, or frankly, all of the routes? Those are things we want to hear. And the map that you see in the back there just gives you a sense of what our frequencies are on every one of the routes on the weekends. So you'll notice that not as many of our routes run at 15 minutes or better on a weekday or on weekends. On the next slide, we'd love to hear your thoughts on bettering our amenities at bus stops and stations. So I mentioned earlier, we have a Better Bus Stops program that our planner, Nikki, leads. And so if you're in her breakout room, she's your gal for sharing your input on this. Are there some bus stops and stations that need bike racks? Should we look into certain technologies for real-time signage and schedules? Are there certain stops that you feel need more seating or shelters, need more cleaning? We're also looking into different ways we could provide lighting, whether that's lighting from shelters or lighting from adjacent properties. So things like that. Next few slides here, new ideas or what are your ideas for service to new areas? So this tends to be a popular category. So are there some new routes that you've cooked up and you want to share with us? We'd love to hear them. Are there connections that you would want VTA to prioritize, connections between light rail and bus, for instance? Route extensions to new areas that we don't explore today. or even other transit service models. And then on the next slide, what I mean by other transit service models, just to give some examples of things that we could explore tonight. What's emerging in the transit world a lot now, especially in our county, is this idea of offering on-demand transit service, which is much like hailing a ride, but instead of hailing an individual ride through an Uber or Lyft, you're hailing a ride from a shared vehicle, a minivan that can certainly seat many more people and do pickup and drop off along the way. So VTA is starting to explore what this could look like through our 2016 Measure B program. And we are actually funding a couple of on-demand transit services today. And so the two that are active today are the Milpitas Smart service and the Mogo Quick Ride in Morgan Hill. And so these have been running since September or so, and they essentially provide citywide on-demand transit service. Morgan Hills is citywide on-demand, offering service Monday through Saturday. Milpitas is actually one that functions a little bit differently, where it is more of a transit hub and spoke model, and your first or your start or your endpoint have to be at one of their 4 transit hubs. So these are some examples of other transit services that we'd love to hear your input on, to see if there's interest in other areas where VTA can work with cities to fund these and to manage them. And then on the next slide, other examples of other transit. I'll wait for the next slide. It might be lagging on my end. I apologize if my internet's lagging. Okay, there it is. So other transit services we might want to explore with you. Could there be more of a focus on offering first last mile shuttles to our very popular stations? A more focus on school service, express or commuter buses, or even transit programs that specifically serve social service agencies and their clients. So let us know what you think about that. So that was a lot of examples I threw out at you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing yours. And now we can get started with our breakout groups. So before we do that, on the next slide, I just want to introduce to you all what to expect in our breakout rooms. So for the next 30 minutes, we'll break out into our rooms. So there will be 4 rooms, and I think we've all introduced ourselves as to who will be facilitating those rooms. And for the first 5-10 minutes or so, I want you all to just go wild on this vision board that you'll see on the screen. There will be Post-its that'll be placed in each of these 6 categories. And just for the first 5-10 minutes or so, just post any and all ideas you have. No bars hold. This is not the kind of network you want to hold back on. We really want to hear your bold ideas for improving transit. And then once that time is up, within those groups, we've got 3 prompts that we want you to discuss amongst the team. So quick round of introductions, just so you can get to know your fellow breakout room members. We want to know what motivates you to ride transit. Second, please summarize and discuss what your group's top inputs of interest are. So if there are some common themes that you've seen across the different Post-its everyone's posted, feel free to summarize and discuss them and kind of gather some common themes across your group. In the last session we had, some teams even went ahead and they already saw a great idea posted and agreed with it. So feel free to just put a +1 or a thumbs up, and Deanna will go through how you can do that on the next slide. And then lastly, 30 years, again, 30 years is a really long planning horizon. So looking at those first 10 of those 30 years, we want to know what VTA should focus on immediately. So with that, we've got our marching orders, but I'll hand it off to Deanna to walk us through how Mural works.
Yes, don't march off quite yet. I just want to give you a few instructions. Can I get the next slide? So in just a moment, I will post a link in the chat that will guide you to Mural, and you'll be taken to a window that looks just like this one. You'll be randomly assigned an animal avatar. In my example case, you can see I am a visiting rabbit. You could choose to enter your own name, or you can just stay a visiting animal. And then you'll click enter as a visitor. And within the site, you will see 4 identical vision boards. So let me put that in the chat right now. Oops. Can we have you go back, Moni? Thanks. So that will get you to the mural. So let's go ahead and enter that site right now. And the last time we did this exercise, we had a few people who had issues being prompted to download an app or things like that. So if you're prompted like that and you don't want to do it, hang tight. There's a workaround. We'll ask your facilitator to type your suggestions into the Mural app itself. So I am also going to kind of share my screen now so that I can show you how to work around here. So within Mural, we see these 4 vision boards. So there's also a navigation setting that is in this bottom right-hand corner. So you've been assigned randomly to a breakout group. Janice, if you're in with Janice, you'll be in group number 1. And that means you'll type in this upper left-hand corner. So you can go ahead to the navigation setting, click in this upper left, and it'll take you to the right square. Joseph's going to be leading us, our group in room 2. So you can click the upper right and we'll be in there. Nikki's got our Nikki's got our group in room 3. So bottom left, you're with Nikki, you're going to click over there. And John is going to manage our group in room 4. Bottom right corner, click. To participate, to leave an idea, just click on any sticky note that's in there and start typing. This is a test idea. You can contribute in any of those. And if your group has a lot of ideas, if 15 stickies are not enough, you can go ahead and continue to add more by just double clicking where you want to. Now I've created a new sticky to continue my participation there. So using your mouse, using the plus minus buttons, you can move around the different vision boards and participate on any of the 6 sections that Janice has talked about: weekends, nights, frequency. And again, for anybody who's having trouble participating, you can talk to your breakout room facilitator and they can add your ideas to the board. So with that, I will now go ahead and open up your breakout rooms and you can get started. As Janice said, go hog wild. We want all your ideas. Breakout rooms will be opening right now.
Righty. Good job, ladies.
Y'all the only ones that can hear me now?
Mhm.
Okay, everybody else in the room. The chat, I forgot to ask. When we come back, am I going through that? Do I need to go through that to pull out questions, just in case there's questions in there?
I think I answered, I asked Kyle to submit his stuff in his breakout room. And then I think the other one was just how do we give more feedback? So
Okay,
I think we're okay unless other stuff pops up.
okay.
Hey, I see one thing, like one question that I have is on my screen, I see like a alert by breakout rooms. Is that anything?
Oh, let me see, I'm not sure. Let me look.
No, that's just telling me there's one person who's not in one. Gretchen.
Oh, oh, there's two people, and the other one is me.
I'm so surprised you guys. I mean, my husband is like practicing, he's recording tonight, and so he's got like people coming over, and they're kind of slowly coming in. And we had to put Ollie in his crate, and so Ollie has just been crying like so loudly for the last like half an hour. So yeah. Okay. Well, if we have some time, I'm going to step away for a few minutes. Okay. And I will pop back in over here. All right. But I am going to have my phone on me. So if anything comes up,
You're
Teams-
good. You have
Teams me.
25 minutes to go.
Yeah,
I'm going to go calm my crazy dog down.
okay.
All right. But you guys are doing great. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, thank you.
So Moni, in about
Yes, ma'am.
5 minutes, I'm gonna stop sharing because they're gonna go to their rooms. And then can you just bring it back to whatever breakout room slide we left off on?
Oh, yeah, okay. They not in their rooms right now?
No, well, I mean, they're in their rooms, but they're still typing, so I'm looking at stuff.
Oh, you looking at, got it. Okay, okay.
Like Janice's room is going to town.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, everybody's in there working. So now here go my puppy over here scratching at the door. I'm not letting you in right now. I just
I
can't.
say John's group doesn't have much going on.
I'm sorry.
So funny. Everybody's pets are acting up tonight.
Girl. I mean, he really beat on the door. No, because he ain't gonna come in here and be quiet.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say there's not much chat. I don't think you have to address anything.
Okay, all right. I'm scared to touch my thing with my screen on because I tap it and it moves and stuff. I'm like, oh my God. Not touching anything. I barely graze it with my sleeve and the thing moved. I'm like, oh my gosh, not stop it. Can't be up here.
Patty left. All right, I'm gonna run off for about 10 minutes. I'll be back. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Okay, I'll share mine. Back to
Okay, are we all back?
Looks good. All the rooms are closed. Hopefully we're back.
All right. So now we're ready to report out. Because I've been doing a lot of the talking, I don't want to go first. So why don't I have one of the other breakout rooms go first? I'm just gonna pick someone. Joseph, would you like to report out what you've heard from your group?
Sure. Let me just grab my notes. So I have to give it to everybody in my group. They did a really great job of really describing what motivates them to travel, to use transit, and what type of improvements they want to see in the next 30-year time span. So some of the motivations that folks had mentioned is travel is out of necessity a lot of times, but there's also a lot of freedom involved. I love this comment from Michael. He was talking about the freedom that it is to live in an urban area, and the constant need for checking in your car or parking is such a hassle, and it weighs on on people's thoughts. So just using public transit is just a great way to get around town and not have to worry about keeping tabs on your car. We also talked about different areas of that folks want to see new service, especially in Loyola Corners, and how hard it can be to get around Palo Alto sometimes. That you have El Camino, where it's a great east to west connection, but for a lot of folks, getting around in cities in Palo Alto, Mountain View, and on places along the peninsula, or even going north to south, can be so difficult. So, more connections to El Camino, and just kind of more neighborhood-centric routes. And then one point that was really driven home is just frequency, how 15 minutes is not high frequency transit to a lot of folks. 5 to 10 minutes is actually high frequency transit. And, public transit is competing against private transportation. And I think it was Elan who brought up a good point, that it's so easy for folks to just go into their car and not have to think about how they're going to get somewhere. It's just so convenient. So we really have to do better to get more transit at a frequent pace. And then finally, I do want to mention that there was some comments about school service and how we can really improve there, and how difficult it is for our youth in our county to go to the mall, to go to school, when they only have one school tripper a day, and if they miss that, they're kind of out of luck. So just finding ways to improve school service is really important to folks.
Great summary. Thank you, Joseph. Glad to hear the chat was so active. All right, who wants to top that? Who can top that? Just kidding. It's not about topping it. Nikki?
Thanks, Janice. A few ones that we haven't heard before is surf parks, so more people can hike, like Allen Rock and Rancho, which are places that VTS provided service before. Moffett Park is getting denser and is getting more redeveloped, so new service there. Heard a lot about frequency, expanding service, 24-hour service, especially for those that have work not the traditional 8 to 5. And also we heard about adding more childcare and family childcare facilities near transit. So this was the call out to our TOD program, and just having that importance of having more amenities, community amenities near our transit centers.
Excellent suggestions. Thanks, Nikki. I heard a lot of common themes about parks in my group as well, service to parks. John.
Great. So, we had a few people in our group. So one of the things that was mentioned, one person likes taking light rail, likes to take it downtown. The problem is it just takes a long time. So anything to support quicker service on light rail would be appreciated, because right now you're probably, if you could drive there, you're probably going to drive there faster than using light rail to get downtown. We had another person saying that they took transit everywhere and they liked it because it was convenient, but there wasn't enough service. They just noted that they take the bus more often, and saying that, driving can be kind of a painful experience, sitting in traffic or you're just getting impatient. But for the most part, they liked our service so far. Just wish it could be taken into account all the other people that don't live on a frequent network line. It just takes them forever to get to the bus. So some of the non-frequency routes can have more frequent service, maybe not 10 minutes, but from 60 to 20, maybe just like a good start. Also, we also heard that there's not enough service outside the city of San Jose. Because in some of the non-frequent routes, some of the wait times for the buses are a lot longer. It forces people to become impatient with waiting for the bus. So they decide either just never to take transit or find another way to get around, whether it be rideshare or driving. And also the connection to between light rail and bus should be a lot smoother, because there's a lot of conflicts with timing. So if we could look at maybe some of the timing conflicts for various services, that would be great. What we also basically heard was just putting more service out. And we withdrew in earlier planning efforts. We withdrew from locations where there were some riders, maybe not a full bus, but there were actually riders that use transit. But once we took that away, it forced them to either drive somewhere or walk somewhere. It took them a long time. So there's some spots around the county that there's connections that are missing. So we could take a look at that. And then in terms of kind of the service enhancements for the first 10 years, yes, technology is great, but the bus works just fine. Focus on really improving bus service, because that's everywhere you go. Having a good bus network is really kind of a hallmark of city transportation. And noting that the bus is also more flexible. We also heard, having a connection to Caltrain. If VTA can sync up, getting to Caltrain stations is a lot better. It would help out. And figuring out a way to get school kids to use the bus, whether it be finding a service model that looks at VTA providing buses for school kids might be an option. Also improving fares for transit, notably light rail. They felt that getting on light rail is expensive, and there could be a better fare structure for light rail that would help as well. So those are kind of the things that we heard.
Thanks, John. So my group had quite a bit to say about frequency as well. And, I think our group could resonate with your group, John, in saying that, better service is really, like in your words or in your group's words, the hallmark of like improving transit service, right? It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be served by, unproven technologies like the Hyperloop, right? So that's actually a very specific comment that my breakout group had shared. Forget the Hyperloop. We don't need any of that to make our service better. Yeah, Nick's like, boo. But going back to the motivations of my group, environment was certainly a resonating motivation. Disliking driving and not wanting to be responsible for, a potential collision with others is another motivation. They wanted to eliminate dependency on their car, or they just don't have a car in general. We had a couple of people in my group who also bike, but in certain areas where they travel throughout the county, they choose transit over biking in some areas for safety reasons. They just feel more comfortable navigating that area with transit over bike. Transit is oftentimes affordable and convenient depending on where they're located or where they live or where they're going to. There's certainly representation here tonight from San Jose State and all commuters coming from San Jose State, whether you're a student or faculty or staff. And, you know, what I appreciate about tonight's conversation is that we do have folks who would love to be more motivated to ride transit, right? They don't ride transit today as their primary mode, but what would get them to ride more frequently or at all is if the service was more frequent, more reliable. And they still really are motivated by the fact that transit is one of several ways to reduce congestion and help the environment. So some top themes from my group for enhancing transit service. Reliability came up multiple times, whether it's through the service we provide, but even in the technologies or even the more analog ways that we share information with our riders. So, you know, there's some hiccups, of course, that our riders face with using the transit app. It's not perfect, nor is it perfect in reporting out, you know, when the bus is coming, real-time information and the like. So we understand there's some challenges there. More frequency on our bus service in general is another theme. Working with cities to prioritize transit to high density areas so that service can be more efficient, cost effective too. And, you know, my team has also shared that our transition to low to no emission buses is really important to them. It would be great if we could secure more funding to support clean infrastructure on our service. Frequency wise, run buses every 5 to 10 minutes, add transit service to serve more parks, such as Henry Coe and Castle Rock, connect light rail and bus service more directly to the airport, explore freeway removal and fill that space with more transit service in those areas. So those are some top themes and ideas from my team. And then as far as what should be prioritized or what can VTA do and chip away at in the first 10 years of this 30-year horizon, frequency, you know, frequency is again, you know, top of the list in terms of these 3 questions. My team would love to see 60-minute headways on our service go away. Ideally, if we can get away with it, anything, keep our service running at 20 minutes or better. You know, 20 minutes would be the absolute minimum. That would really encourage reliability in our service. Another thing that's come up is exploring ways where we can add a carrot and stick approach to incentivizing sustainable transportation, but also discouraging single occupancy vehicle use. You know, so transportation demand management was something that came up in my team, something that we can do much more holistically and hopefully explore through the VTP as well. Quick build bus lanes and quick build bulb outs. Explore more service like the former Route 11 that used to serve the Coleman Shopping Center. That was a really key service that unfortunately is a service gap today. That was something that college students really depended on to get groceries done, to run errands, etc. Make housing along San Salvador and 10th more transit accessible. Make transit accessible to our airports. Let's see, there's of course barriers to use for Clipper technology today. So we'd like to explore ways where we could improve that so that folks don't feel like they have to pay out of pocket just to ride because their Smart Pass or their Clipper card isn't working. And the last note here, which is a really great note, you know, we talk about how frequency is important in prioritizing in the first 10 years, but the reason behind that is, you know, we also need to consider how we increase frequency or how we phase in more frequent service as we think about buying new buses, improving our fleet, hiring new operators, making sure that that stays in pace with our plans to improve service. Otherwise, we're back to square one and our service is not reliable. So I thought that was a very, very thoughtful point made. So I think that wraps up the notes for the breakout groups. Thanks everyone for these amazing ideas and for really sharing what motivates you. That's always my favorite part is understanding what makes you tick when it comes to talking about transit. And it's the reason why you're all here tonight. So let's see. I wanted to check in with Deanna or Moni maybe if there was anything that we should clarify or anything that needed to be highlighted in the chat that we might have missed. Anything like that we need to cover?
Nope, no, I think most of the talking tonight was done in your breakout room, so there's not much from the chat.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So before I dismiss you all, or before we dismiss you all for the evening, and I'm sure you're all starving and ready to eat dinner, I wanted to highlight a couple more opportunities we have to engage on the Visionary Network and the VTP. We do have a long road ahead of us with engagement. So you can see that we are doing engagement and visioning exercises like this up until basically the end of January, early February. So that's the time frame there to remind you all again where we're headed in the next few months. And then more specifically on the next slide, we have many more meetings, but I think the ones we want to focus your attention on today, we've got another series of meetings for our office hours. For those of you who weren't able to join us in our first set of office hours, that was a really great time. It's a new format that our COPE team, our community outreach and public engagement team, is working through, and we thought it went so well. We're going to have another one where we have a panelist of VTA staff to answer anything and everything you might have about transit. So we've got a hold, or I think we've set that in stone, right, Gretchen, for Thursday the 19th, 6 to 7. So it'll be an evening meeting this time, because I think last time we had it in the afternoon. And we also have another community meeting scheduled for the VTP that John is leading on the 24th, another evening meeting. You can register for either or for both of those events on either of our websites. So I think those will be up, if not already. And then we'll also be in person. We have been doing our roadshow or our rounds of the VTP and the Visionary Network engagement at different transit centers throughout the county. And in fact, tomorrow, if you happen to be in the area or passing through there, we'll be at the Eastridge Transit Center at around 2:30 or so, and we'll be there all afternoon. So feel free to stop by, and you'll see a physical version of the board, and you'll get to work with physical Post-its if anything else comes to mind when you're at Eastridge. We'll be releasing dates for other transit centers that we'll make appearances at, but again, more immediately tomorrow we'll be at the Eastridge Transit Center. And lastly, I commonly get questions about how to tune in on what we've been hearing so far. We do have a subscribe button on both pages, or at least on the Visionary Network page, and we do want to use that to our advantage to reach out to you and give updates on how the plan is going so far, if that's something that the community feels would be helpful as we wrap things up and package things up for board adoption by the spring. So I think that was our last slide. The last slide is really just links to our websites, but thank you all again for spending some time with us tonight. And I do see some familiar names here from the last time. So thank you again for calling in a second time. And I hope to see more of you come by. Any closing remarks, Moni? I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you to the rest of the staff that is out tonight. I think you all did a wonderful job. And thank you again to those of you who have participated with us on this evening, you guys. This makes our day. It makes our job worth it to have you all come out to our meetings. So keep coming, share it with your networks, tell your friends about the the work that we're doing and about the meetings that we have. And I do hope that you all had a fun time tonight, as well as received a lot of information. I like our little mural exercise. So I don't know, I think it's kind of cool. So hopefully you all think it's kind of cool too, and that you share it with your friends and your family. And that is it for this evening. Have a great evening and a great rest of your week, and happy holidays to all of you as well. Thank you. Have a good night.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone for coming out.